everybody is. And it's difficult to get into the United States. Even as a legal immigrant, there is an awful lot of security, vetting. I mean, you may not know this, but I actually had to give blood in order to get my permanent
Is that a ghost or is it just my hangover?
I actually had to give blood. And that is part of the process
My
of legal
babysitter.
immigration.
V, this is Scorpion.
And in addition to
Mitch.
Mike Johnson
Two old
letting
friends.
slip that there is no way that they want to do a deal before the
What
election.
brings you to these parts,
Hey.
city girl?
Who is
big
not
city
seeking
got too
re-election,
small for her.
as we know, is
Scorpion.
You have any idea how angry the old man's gonna
moderate
be when he
Republican
sees you?
has come out and admitted
Hey, look,
that Donald
Scorpion.
Trump does not want to do a deal on immigration. Made
See?
it absolutely clear, and that obviously that's something that frustrates him.
Oh, I think the border is a very important issue for Donald Trump, and the fact that he would communicate
Just come by for a
to
spell.
Republican
Saul
senators
knew
and
what
Congress people that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame
The rapids screwed me over.
Biden for it.
I'll get them back,
It's
but I
really
need
appalling. Someone running for president ought to try and get the
We'll thrash them, the four
problem
of
solved,
us.
as opposed to
You know,
saying,
he would
save
do
that problem, don't solve it. Let me take credit for solving it later.
Seriously?
Complain all
You
the
won't
time
help?
about the southern border and about immigration, and they'll do stunts
Sit
like
tight,
busing
get
people
those
to
generators back up after the batteries
The
went
reality is that
Generators?
they have
You won't
no
help because of some
desire
goddamn
to
generators?
because
Is this another
for
joke?
them, it's political theater, making Joe Biden look bad when Joe Biden has been one of the most effective presidents
Not this
in
time.
history.
We're needed
And
here.
of course, the economy
I
is a
don't believe
huge
this.
success story. Inflation down
So
again.
look, because
Jobs
Saul told
numbers
you to.
looking
You
better
couldn't care less
than
about
ever.
me.
America is
Panam.
bouncing back.
This isn't
from
about
the
Saul.
pandemic
It's about
in
the
a
Klan.
huge way.
You know that.
Stock market
Listen,
is
we
doing
can't leave
great
camp.
business.
No chance, but
Joe Biden
but Saul
is
never said a
not
thing
the type
about
to
gear.
brag, unfortunately. If it was Donald Trump in that
Okay.
position, of course, he would be
Well, I'll
singing
need that
his
rifle
own
of yours.
name from the hill.
And some of my own
But,
stuff.
Joe Biden
Take whatever
is the
you
type
want.
of person
And
who
take
is
care
a
of yourself
public
out
servant that believes that he should just be getting on
Thanks,
with the
guys.
job because
I'll
it's
grab
his
the gear,
job.
then be out of your hair.
Unfortunately, these days in politics and party
Looks like you're
politics,
stuck
you
with me.
kind of do need to make a bit more of a noise about your successes.
You disappointed?
But
I don't know.
here's the thing.
Maybe
We
I
are
will,
at a
yes.
political crossroads, a historical crossroads, where America chooses democracy over dictatorship, chooses
No, I'll be
freedom
going again soon.
over
We'll talk
fascism.
next time.
It might sound dramatic, but
Shoot
this is
and ride.
a moment in history where the United States has to choose, where voters
brought someone
get to choose the path for the country
Wanna
going
see what you
forward.
got
This is not
inside.
just about Joe
But I was feeling
Biden's next
hardcore
4
then.
years. This is about choosing freedom from
Go for
fascists.
this.
The fascist policies
And
are already
go for
in
this.
place. If you haven't read Project 2025, which I can understand because it's nearly 900 pages, there is a plan in place to completely gut the federal government and rebuild it in Donald Trump's image, featuring loyalists and people who are far-right MAGA Republicans in every office. This is a very dangerous thing. It takes away the impartial nature of the state. And whilst Donald Trump might not be able to get his head around the fact that the state is impartial and the Justice
Now I got enough
Department
to crack
is
me and
impartial
these
under Joe
some
Biden's tenure. It might not have been when Trump was running it. As we know, he used his attorneys general as personal lawyers, pretty much. But, the status quo is that these departments are impartial. And that is how it needs to remain. And so that is what you are voting for in November. A choice between freedom and fascism, between democracy and dictatorship. I'm Anthony Davis. You can hear me every day
Have
on
you
the
I like my
Fox
new
News
gun.
podcast.
Does
You
Saul
can
know
catch
it's
me
a friend?
on Uncovered every Wednesday, co-hosting with Ron Filipkowski, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up for the Midas Touch newsletter
Will you
at
help me with this?
What's inside?
A
MidasTouch.com/newsletter.
few odds and ends that should be useful. Take it. All right, that's everything. Let's go.
Okay, we're going to start on kind of a grim note here. We have a lot to get to this morning, but Donald Trump's latest...
Wait, you're
Wanna
talking
give
about
myself chill.
the lead.
Straight
It's
to
the
the
lead
point.
of the New York Times
I like
today.
it.
I know.
And I've got to say,
it's really important that we're talking about the possible ending of democracy, and it's really important that these stories are in just about every day to, again, keep explaining to people. So if they decide they want to throw away American democracy and go toward autocracy, they can never say they weren't for.
That is true. Donald Trump's latest extreme remarks describing his political enemies as vermin that he needs to root out is sparking new concern about his authoritarian rhetoric, and that is the piece in the front page of the New York Times. And it notes this. He has insinuated that the nation's top military generals should be executed and called for the termination of parts of the Constitution if he wins back the White House. He has said he would have no choice but to imprison political opponents. The paper continues. Mr. Trump's rise to power was almost immediately accompanied by debates over whether his ascendancy and that of other leaders around the world with similar political views signaled a revival of fascism. Fascism is generally understood as an authoritarian far-right system of government which hyper-nationalism is a central component. It also often features a cult of personality around a strongman leader, the justification of violence or retribution against opponents, and the repeated denigration of the rule of law, said Peter Hayes, a historian who has studied the rise of fascism. It feels like a history lesson.
Again, go down the list. People say, oh, it's not fascism, and then you go down a list of fascist tendencies of past fascist leaders, and he ticks them all off, except for one thing, and let's get to that. But keep reading.
Okay, past fascist leaders appeal to a sense of victimhood to justify their actions.
They're all snowflakes.
The idea is we're entitled because we've been victimized. We've been cheated and robbed, he said. One expert who has researched political rhetoric tells the Times that Mr. Trump had wielded language as a chisel to chip away at democratic norms. Normally, a president would use war rhetoric to prepare a nation for war against another nation, she said. Donald Trump uses war rhetoric domestically.
And that, Catty K, is what's so frightening, that his focus is not in taking over other countries, it's in taking over this country, undermining American democracy.
Yeah, go already. Call us sometime.
For the termination of the Constitution, calling still
Put
for
it in
the
the
arresting and the imprisonment of his political opponent, something he did to me as a member of the media, something he did to the Biden family the last 2 weeks of the 2020 campaign, when he was yelling at his attorney general to arrest the entire Biden family. Look at it, and here it is. I mean,
but they're just regular type of craft weapons. Not iconic.
Disinterested in the degradation.
Mitch and Scorpion seem good souls.
The best friends a girl could ask for.
Not only of
I'd stay in the camp too if I were in their shoes. Fuck solid generators, of course.
That they learn in their communities, that they learn in their
But I'm part
churches.
of it anyway.
But
Still treated you like you're wonderful.
completely
They care
disinterested
about
in the fact that the leader
Do
they're
you have any
following,
idea what call close?
well, he's an autocrat.
Not right now,
He's
no.
talking like an
It would
autocrat.
just be a
and
matter
he's
of time.
promised them he's going to rule like an autocrat, arresting political opponents and deciding for
Are
himself
those two in the army?
what new shows will stay on television
Hands
and
of
what new shows
They're on
not.
contract during the last war.
Hands
Over the
up.
last few years, you've had
One
a
of those
lot
huge
of
transports.
that's kind of hide behind this idea of serious humans, or literally,
They've
right?
both got some kick-ass condoms in place.
It's all kind of a joke when he says this sort of thing. It's the press
So
saying,
Rocky Ridge,
oh, look,
empty,
getting their
dusty
hair
hole
on
in the
fire and
middle
saying
of
this all
bumfuck
sounds
nowhere.
very autocratic.
Leaders either
But
moved
a
to
couple
Night
of
City or
conversations
just
I've
got
had
the hell
recently
out.
with people
Then
close
you
to
know
the
almost
Trump
all there is to
campaign,
know.
it's
The whole
exactly
area is
that
very
they point to as one of the first things they'll do is this idea of political retribution and remaking the judicial system both to protect Donald Trump and to get vindication for perceived wrongs. I mean, when you ask them, well, one interview I had, what changes in Trump's second term, the first thing that I was told is Mark Milley goes to jail.
and then Tony Fauci goes to jail. And it is this idea of using the system of government to defend one person. I mean, literally subverting the whole of government to do that, and taking the Justice Department kind of inside the White House. So I think, Dan Boltz wrote this in the Washington Post just this week. It's now time to take him both seriously and literally, because the plans are there. I mean, the plans are already being laid out, and the number of historians who are now students of autocracy who are saying you need two things for an autocratic regime.
The reason we came to California was because he promised to change for the old accountants.
In kind of language. We have seen
most authority will dictators come from military might.
We have got this kind of toxic situation
Donald Trump,
at the moment where the ground
he got no.
campaign, but also
He haven't made.
To kind of create a situation where it's normal to think of using.
He doesn't have no respect from the military people.
And then it doesn't take very long for that to start spiraling out of control. Both sides start seeing that as something that is justified.
Well, and Jonathan Lear, is what we heard from people that were, I guess, too offended, or maybe perhaps too delicate to call a fascist a fascist, or to call fascism fascism. For years, people said, oh yeah, but we don't have the violence component. Despite the fact Donald Trump throughout the first campaign time and again kept saying, beat the hell out of my opponents. And I would pay lawyers fees praising a congressman, as we said, for beating the hell out of an individual.
They don't keep their fucking word, especially to us as black people. A lot of us are walking forward for this country.
What do we do?
Just to fucking turn around.